Sorry I couldn't be there in person to go through this with you, but I'm going to go through an example of solving a two-step equation. So let's take a look step by step, okay? You can always pause the video anywhere you need to make sure that you're understanding what we're doing here. So to start with, if we have this equation, 3x plus 12 equals 21. If you recall from maybe the previous lesson with Miss Keever, you have to somehow undo these operations. So if you remember the order of operations, if we just looked at the left-hand side of this equation at 3x plus 12, it's 3 times x plus 12. So, with order of operations, we would have to do 3 times x first and then add 12. But when you solve an equation, you have to do the order of operations backwards. So in other words, instead of doing multiplication and division first in the order of operations here, we have to undo the addition and subtraction first. So when I'm looking, I see that there is addition. So I'm adding 12 on the left-hand side of the equal sign, which means I have to undo my addition. To undo addition, we have to think of the inverse property or the inverse operation. So instead of adding 12, I need to subtract 12. Now, because we have an equal sign, we have to be fair to both sides of the equal sign. So if I subtract 12 from the left side, I have to also subtract 12 from the right side. Okay, so now, subtracting 12 from the left side, what is 12 minus 12? 0. So this gets rid of the plus 12 on the left-hand side. You still have to subtract 12 on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So 21 minus 12 is 9. So here's a question for you. What property did we use to subtract 12 from both sides of the equal sign? Well, that property is called the subtraction property of equality, because we subtracted the same amount from both sides of the equal sign. Next, we have 3x equals 9. 3x means 3 times x. So then we have to think, what operation is the inverse, or what undoes multiplication? If you said division, then you're right. You have to divide by 3. But if I divide by 3 on one side of the equation, what do I have to do to the other side? Divide by 3. So if I divide the left side by 3, I have to divide the right side of the equal sign by 3. What is 3 divided by 3? 1. So now you have 1x. But remember, in math, we don't always write the 1 in front of our variable, which is x in this case. So we don't have to write 1x. We can simply just write x. So we have x equals 9 divided by 3 was 3. So we have our answer, x equals 3. But what was that property we used? to divide 3 from both sides. If you think about what we did from the previous step with the subtraction property of equality, you can only guess what property of equality we used. The division property of equality, because we divided both sides by the same number. Now, do we stop there? Well, it's always best to check and make sure that our answer works properly. So we can take our x equals 3 and plug it into the original equation. So where the x was in the beginning, we now replace it, which is called substitution. So we substitute the 3 for the x. Notice it's 3 instead of x, it's 3 times 3, because that's what we said x was, plus 12 equals 21. Now, I always suggest that you put the parentheses for the x when you substitute. It will help you later in case there are negative signs involved. So get used to putting parentheses where the variable used to be and plug the number into it. So substitute the number in. So now you have to make sure that you finish the operations. So what is 3 times 3 plus 12? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. And now we have 9 plus 12, which is 21. Notice on the left-hand side of this equation, we kept showing the steps or the work. And the order of operations mattered here. We had to do 3 times 3 first to get 9. Then we added 12 to get 21. Now we know 21 equals 21. So this is correct. So x equals 3.